Greetings, everyone. A warm welcome to another exciting episode of Great Conversation and Talks. This is Jennifer, a student at GCT. So, I hope you all are ready to be enlightened. Today, we have a unique topic that is indeed essential for everybody to know: digital transformation. For this, we have a special guest joining us today to talk about digital transformation. We have Ms.Shrividya Narayanaswamy from the batch of 2003. She's from the Department of Civil Engineering. I gladly welcome you, ma'am. She is also a proud alumna of IIM Lucknow and the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. Currently, she's working as a product manager at Optum, which is a health services and innovation company based in New York. Speaking of the topic for today, Ms. Srividya is a digital transformation specialist who is very much devoted to apply advanced analytics in the healthcare modernization continuum. Once again, I welcome you, ma'am. It's a great pleasure to have you here. I also welcome all the participants who are here today. Without wasting much time, let's move on to the session. Before that, a kind request to all participants: if you have any queries, kindly use the chat box. Ma'am, the floor is entirely yours. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Jenny, for those sweet introduction. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all the organizers for offering me the opportunity to address the budding entrepreneurs and budding engineers from GCT and other audience that we have here. The connection was seamless. Everything went very smooth, and I applaud your efforts on all of this. So GCT has always been very special to me. It's not only because I myself am a GCT alum. I actually have 3 family members, including myself, from GCT, and I've always nurtured the friendships that I've endured in from GCT, and I'm grateful to the faculty, for all the knowledge that they've given us, not only curriculum-based knowledge, but also the life lessons as well. So, brief introduction about myself. I currently support the modernization efforts at Optum, and Optum is part of the Health Information Technology group in United, and it comes under the United Health Group. And we do technological, operational, and consulting solutions and services to individual healthcare organizations in both as well as pharmaceutical companies for both the federal, state governments, and other agencies as well. We have about 300,000 employees globally, and the revenue is approximately around $300 million. So let's begin our presentation. I hope I'm able to give you some advice about digital transformation, and you get the basics of what it is, and probably you can do more with it in future as well. Let me take you to this image over here. What is this? This is the Porter's 5 forces framework, which is essentially used for analyzing the competitive landscape in any industry. Let me take you back to the time where before the digitization, and we look at the competitive landscape, and this framework would actually allow us to analyze the competition in the industry. And when we look at this framework, we see, what the bargaining power of suppliers are, which is nothing but, what is the amount of input that they can provide to the industry as well. What is the influence of, threat of new entrants? What is the influence of threat of suppliers? And what is the bargaining power of the buyers in the industry? And how it all comes together and affects the competitiveness or the industrial rivalry among the current industry. Now, can this framework be applied in this situation that is post-digitization? Let's look at that. So pre-digitization, we have a business that's running, and we have an offer. The company is making an offer to the buyer space, and other firms are also competing for the same space. And it depends on what kind of customization that you're providing in your service. The buyers have the ability to demand demand those personalizations, and they also have the ability to dictate the prices. um, all this, if you see, somehow has elevated the level the industry operates in post digitization. For example, after this digitization, we see that the bargaining supplier power of suppliers is much low when compared to pre-digitization, because you have a lot more suppliers that are able to enter into the market. The supply power has been leveled so that any company with any vision, with a direct vision, can rent, or they can develop or transform the assets by enabling technology, so that any market is for taken is there for taking, and consistently it's being disrupted. The competitive rivalry has also been leveled. There are no or very less barriers of entry, if I must say, and the buyer power has been transformed, to provide more options and more customization more than ever. You can now ask for your pizza to be delivered in such a location with so many different toppings, and you can have the gluten free, or you can have the lactose free. Um, Buyer power has grown so high post digitizations, and and the threats of substitutes is also very very high, and that's of course that's where the personalizations come in, and it's galore in this current market. So substitutes are plenty, buyer switching cost is low, barriers to entry is low, and supplier power is also very low, with several inputs in place, which means that there is definitely a need for a transformation. There's definitely a means, or a need for you to elevate your product, or your service on a virtual platform, or an online platform, so that you're able to reach a wider audience. You're able to provide the service seamlessly. You're able to provide the service at a better cost. You're able to function better in the industry. Your processes are streamlined, and you reap on those cost effectiveness in the supply channels. So all these benefits come only when you're able to transform yourself, or you're able to digitize yourself. So what is digital transformation? Is it simply just that that you provide a service online? So you have a brick and mortar service, and you create a website for it. You advertise the products online, and you set up a payment system, and then you have a feedback system, you have a customer representative system, you set up a supply channel. um, is that it? Is that all there is to do? That is exactly not the case. Digital transformation is much more than that. What we were talking earlier is simply digitization, which is nothing but providing a service online, whatever, if it's, as I mentioned, a brick and mortar service, you're just virtually uplifting it and providing it online. But digital transformation is a way by which enterprises drive change in their business models and ecosystems by leveraging digital competencies. For example, if you would take the case of the pandemic, there were several companies which were reacting to the change. They were trying to put in some ad hoc fixes so that they can communicate with each other, or provide work from home facilities. And these organizations are nothing but what we call the resistors, or people who are just reacting to change. They are not organizations who are geared towards any specific digital transformation in their future. So do we hunt for opportunities? Do we look for transformation opportunities for our organization? Are we explorers? Is that what digital transformation is? It's not that case too. It's they are just exploring their opportunities. They're just using, what they're just seeking out and identifying, what sort of opportunities are out there in the market, and trying to find a way to inbuild their digitization or digital services in order to provide the service. That's definitely not digital transformation. So what do we do? Do we look at a major player in the industry and see how they are performing their business virtually or online, and then try to replicate it? Is that something that we could do? And do we classify as a digital transformer? Of course not. So as I mentioned before, it has to be a transformation, complete transformation in the business model, a complete transformation of the ecosystem. There should be a shift from replacing all the manual processes to into a digital processes. You have to replace your older technology with new technology, and it can be not just those small things. It should also be embedded within the culture of the organization. It's about how the organization creates value for their customers. It's about how you can create an inevitable path for surviving into today's market. It's about consciously orchestrating interactions between the IT systems and the businesses to deliver. They have to make a conscious effort and a conscious strategy to adapt these changes into their organization at the grassroots level and at the the C-suite executive level, to deliver creatively, digitally enhanced, customer-centric business models. And it has to be done um, proactively, because that the barriers to entry are so low. You will have the market, as if you can look back at the Porter's five force model, the barriers are entries are now shrinking. Any organization, any company with very low infrastructure facility can now launch their business, given the idea and given the human capital talent. They would be able to launch their business and perhaps perform better, because they are now smaller and they are more agile. So digital transformation has to be a fundamental shift in the way you think about the business model itself. Let me give you an example, which we all know, and which always comes up when we talk about digital transformation. Um, we have a taxi service that we have all used in the past, where we call up the taxi service and then you hop on and then you pay for the service. It is quite expensive for the organization who owns the taxi service to have a higher inventory, manage their resources. But think about Uber. How did they transform this entire service? They did not just bring in any new technology. They just used the technology that was already available, just an app, but they thought about the business model differently, and they employed it to cater to cater to the service industry. With Uber, they realized that there was very low um, uh, there was a very low I'm sorry, there was a very the threat of substitutes, as I mentioned, in terms of Uber was very, very high. So they were able to launch it, and they were able to perform their services very quickly, and they leveraged it in such a way that they didn't have to take the responsibility of owning any of the inventory. They didn't own the taxis, they didn't own the they didn't have to manage the workforce. All they did was they just transformed the way they conduct the business. Their business model was so evolved that they were able to launch and run, and they can still upgrade. And they inspired so many other businesses, such as such as in India we have, I guess it's called Ola Cab, and other industries. So and they're continuously evolving to, as you can see, to Uber Eats. What else can you do? What else can you think about to drive your agenda into your organization? Identify what are the problems that you can solve for the customer, and how you can solve it quickly and in a seamless way. So these are all some of the nitty-gritties when it comes to digital transformation. And the bottom line is it's simply not providing a service online, but it's a fundamental change in the way we do business. So when we say digital transformation, we understand that it has to be the entire, it's rethinking the way we do business and everything, and that's all fine. But what are some of the components if you're going to look at in terms of thinking about it? So there are, from my experience, I believe there are like 4 components which are very important when we think of digital transformation. One of them, and the source of it, is the customer experiences. How do you enhance the customer experience? How can you provide a service which a customer doesn't know that he needs, but then he's delighted when he receives the service? How can you delight a customer by providing a service differently, or providing a product which is IT enabled, or using analytic tools and improve operational efficiencies, and identifying a way to personalize any product and provide it to the customer in order to create that spark or delight in them when they receive the service? How do you build your organization to to perform this, to function in order to provide this customer service? The organizational processes should not be mundane anymore. You should automate whenever possible. You should have the ability to provide to attain feedback from the customer, not just manually, but it has to be a seamless feedback loop. And you identify the customer's feedback, you find the error rates, and then you fix them, and then you upgrade your product, or you upgrade your service, and you re-provide them. So it's a continuous cycle of these different segments, different components. The experience drives the processes, it drives the model, the business model as such, and it also needs to shift the organizational mindset. The organization has to be open up to a new culture. To it should be able to rapidly respond to changing conditions. It should be agile, in shifting its structure and processes in order to meet the needs up front, not just wait for the changed need and then react. So the transformation journey has to be driven from a strategy enabled perspective. It should not be a feedback loop that's coming in from the customer and then driving change. That should also be taken care of as a normal functioning of an organization. But when we talk about the digital transformation, even though the idea of it is to delight the customer, the organizational process and the organizational and the business model drives all of this. You might see that I may not have included technology as part of it, but technology is a tool that you use to impact all of these sections to ensure the final goal, which is nothing but a customers, Aditi Deva Baba, right? So we delight them in one way or the other. Having said that, we've seen the impact of digital transformation in different industries. If I were to name a few here, I want to highlight, what sort of impacts we've had in marketing. If you see, for example, in Facebook marketing, all you have to do is, you're looking or browsing through something interesting. You're looking at, a specific item of clothing which is of appeal to you, and a different cookie, but then boom, you get an ad. Which is specific to you, with a specific color and specific outfit. You're able to identify, they're able to identify and understand your preferences, and they're able to give you what you need. So there's in the olden times, they would send you pamphlets of their available products, and this entire loop is now become very small. There's the cost of printing and emailing or mailing pamphlets has reduced. There's definitely a reduced cost of advertising and promotions. They are able to now market to you directly and personalize the content to you. They're able to apply those digital coupons instead of. I'm sorry, was that a question? Okay, so they're able to, this digital transformation has enabled the marketing industry significantly, by reducing the cost and by enabling personalizations, just to name a few. In the impact of education, I don't think I need to speak to you. In this pandemic era, even a 5-year-old knows what Zoom is. They're able to reach, whatever tools that they need. They're able to understand the courses online. They were able to pick up, the cues easily. All of those tools, such as Zoom and Teams, they've modified their capabilities and their offers in such a way that they've improved their accessibility. Imagine the impact of virtual reality in education, especially in medicine. There's been huge impacts of digital transformation in different segments, not just in marketing and in education, which are like very low barriers to very low risk segments, but also in like banking and healthcare, which is highly regulated and where people are very hesitant to make a shift. It's become more secure. It's become more personalized, as much personalized as in like in marketing, or if not less. You now have the ability to have a telehealth visit with your provider, and you're able to talk to them, and they can just look at you and identify, and you don't need to go to the doctor anymore for small in-person visit for any small cuts or bruises. You can just have a telehealth visit, and we're able to focus on the people who used to do the mundane form filling and everything. Now we have RPAs, robotic process automation, which can do all of these mundane tasks. So they're able to focus their their energy into transforming insights that they have gained from all this feedback that they receive, and use it in a much more productive way. How can you use those electronic health records that you have, and make prediction models, or you can gain some insights and put it back again in the feedback loop, analyze clickstream data, and identify what what is the trend that we are going to be addressing in the near future. How can what are some of the techniques you could use to to perform to revolutionize industry. This is no longer in retail, it's no longer just about purchasing. It's more about subscription and subscription based styles have increased the loyalty of the consumer. So if it affects the customers multiple facets, and wherever we see, there's definitely a need for digital transformation. But what if you feel that your organization is there already? How do you know that an organization need to be digitally transformed? Let's take the case of any very new a new firm, a new entrant to the market. They are probably looking at all the organizations and all the capabilities that's already available, and they've built up on their core competencies, and they're ready to provide the competitive edge in the market already. Or think about already a native organization like Amazon, or any other tech giant like Honeywell. How do they know? How do they assess and identify that there is a need for some sort of a digital transformation? That's where we can look for some signs of lethargy. So, as I mentioned before, in the very beginning, digital transformation is a conscious effort. It has to come as a strategy that is specifically devised and designed for making a change, making the change within the organization, which will in turn drive the revenue stream. It shouldn't be a reaction. It shouldn't be a reaction-based mechanism. It's a strategy that is driven throughout the organization. It has to be intentional. So if you see that there is an absence of this conscious effort or conscious digital strategy, then that's a sign of that's a specific sign of lethargy. Are you using obsolete tools and obsolete technologies that are difficult to integrate with newer mechanisms or newer tools and technologies? Then that is definitely a sign of lethargy. You're stuck in your ways of using those legacy systems, and you're not able to migrate. That's and you will end up doing the ad hoc fixes of modernization, which will just probably be doing short-term benefits. That's definitely not going to help you in the long run with digital transformation. Do you see any dwindling customer loyalty? And do you see no positive decision making process? It shouldn't be like very passive decision making process. It should be like a very linear. It should be a very organic process. You don't wait for wait to review your customer feedback manually and identify the areas where we are lacking, and then make decisions to drive that change. You should be able to anticipate what the customer's need could be based on a seamless loop, and drive the change. So these are some of the signs of lethargy, and of course this is not an exhaustive list, but you could also see other signs such as hesitancy towards the people in the organization to make the change. For example, some people might feel people who are constantly delivering mundane tasks of filling out forms, or in another case where you listen to the in the case of healthcare, if you listen to the electronic transcribed dictation that the doctors give, you manually write these instructions. Those people are actually aware that those jobs can be replaced by robotic process automation, but then we have to train them in a way to make them understand that this is just a manual, this is just a simple automated job that can actually enhance their job profile. They'd be able to focus on gaining insights from just looking at those automatically text. There's chatbots, there's text analytics. So we have to drive the change again from the very top. It has to come, the transformational change has to be a conscious effort. It again shouldn't be an effort that's like a feedback. So now that you know that your organization is lagging and you need a transformation that you need to take, digital transformation digital transformation that you need to endure, what are some of the steps? So the first and foremost thing, I'd like to again go back to Porter's 5 force model. He also provided a way to analyze your position or evaluate your position in the industry. And first you learn to understand what your strengths are. You identify which areas you're doing very well. You understand your strengths, and you understand the opportunities that are available. How do you identify? You have to identify and prioritize the customers and the other stakeholders' needs and wants. And what are the opportunities that are currently available for enhancing those customer experiences? Is this something that we are missing out on? Are there any current trends in the business and in the operating models that we are missing out on? How are people and the culture reacting to these kind of changes? And what are some of the core values that your organization believes in, and how much of a shift would it take to cater to to make a transformation such as that? How is your architectural domain fixed? So this is something that is very important. So you perform an internal retrospective to understand your position. That is the first and foremost thing that you do. I mean, it's not just for the organization. Even if you want to make a personal change, you try to understand what your strengths are, what is your weakness, what are some of the opportunities that you can improve on, and what are your obstacles or the threats that you might meet up. So first you understand yourself, you understand your organization as a whole. There's several frameworks that are available to use. It depends on the size of the organization and the type of service that you provide. So you're able to use different tools that are and evaluate yourself, evaluate your position in the industry, whether you're a leader or you're a follower, or how where you're placed in the competitive landscape and everything. And then you identify the strategy that you would be able to leverage. You identify what business scenarios you could implement and what specific customer segments that you would be targeting your transformation on. You'd never go on a large scale any transformation, because you fail quick, you fail cheap, right? So you're looking at specific target segments. You're looking at the specific business model you're striving to achieve. You're looking at the goal that you're looking at a very individual vision. You're not looking at multiple goals at the same time. So it's either you're looking for, um, you know, um, um, a growth in the market, or you're looking at providing different services, or you're looking at improvising your revenue stream, or you're looking for doing things differently. You're not going to focus on multiple things. Your strategy is going to be streamlined to ensure that you have targeted customer segments, you have targeted scenarios, you have targeted business goals, and that what kind of strategy you're going to use to build your business and IT architecture accordingly. Now, now that you've analyzed your position, and you devised your strategy, and you've selected your segments, and you know what you're going to do, um, you now have to drive the solution again to in the organization. You identify what the new structure of the organization is going to be. If your organization structure does not enable agile practices and agile value chain and processes, you're not going to be able to drive the digital transformation that you are looking for. And any solution that you implement is a failure if you don't measure it. I mean, you have to measure your success, your failures. I have to identify what KPIs you're going to use to measure your success. You establish the plan, you establish the project plan, you deploy corrective measures, and you also evaluate the level of success that you're striving to achieve. You've achieved in the implementation stage. Any initiatives that you define should be associated with a KPI, and any initiative that that doesn't meet the KPIs, you have to identify what level of corrective measures that need to be enabled, and is there something that we can read. Do a quick fix, do an can you incorporate into your CI/CD pipeline to ensure those changes are delivered quickly. And as I mentioned before, you should focus only on your, lighthouse projects, those projects that are, that that affect multiple segments, but at the same time, it's a very, it's at a very small level, so that you don't implement something great at the very beginning and then you fail and your cost is very high. So your transformation roadmap should always begin with assessing your position and identifying what opportunities are out there. So to simply state, you do a SWOT on yourself, you analyze your strengths, you analyze your weaknesses, you identify what opportunities there are available, and you also have an awareness of what threats are out there. So, and once you've positioned yourself very well, you can then identify which segment you're going to focus your work on, and identify a scenario and deliver the business goal accordingly. And of course, you have to take your organization with you. The people have to be open for new changes. So ensure that you train your folks accordingly. You make sure that the practices the new practices that you're bringing in place affects the value chain and processes across the board. And you always have to measure, and then use the corrective measures, and then you can scale this entire success story more and more to deploy, bigger levels of transformations. So what has this worked? How do we know? So here are some of the success stories that we've seen. So you have Netflix, which which had a very primitive business model. It was just a pay-per rental model. You pay for the DVD for DVD sales, or you rent it by mail. And this was an very brick and mortar business model that was developed in maybe in early 90s. Come early 2000s, they completely disrupted the way they do their business. They they envisioned a new way of how individuals would, or viewers would look at a streaming service, or consume media at home. They were able to leverage all the digital transformation. They just completely innovated their business model, and that's probably what kind of saved it from its extinction. It yeah, it I, it wiped out a lot of blockbuster movies in existence. They were able to launch VOD, a video on demand service, to supplement their rental service at no additional cost. So this was a change that they were able to make with minimal cost impact, and it was one of the lighthouse projects as well. So I think it is proof that digital transformation can help you make big changes. And until date, Netflix has probably the most popular digital content provider. Even but Amazon and Hulu and probably YouTube are not trailing far behind. And we can continue to watch and see how their transformations will lead them on and change the entire landscape of the industry. Another example that we've recently discussed is Uber. They completely evolved their business model, and I can't but not discuss telehealth coming from the healthcare segment. It's a very large part of the digital transformation, especially during the pandemic. Without having telehealth as a strategy being placed before the pandemic, it would not have been possible for us to provide the service. If we had thought of telehealth as a way of providing a service, or a way of reacting to this pandemic, it would have been absolutely, we would not have been able to leverage any of those channels that we were using. We were also already having mobile device channels. We were having already connected with the patients and providers in different ways. So this was a very well thought out process where a healthcare service was being provided, and many hospitals are now looking for growth in telehealth, and it actually is very low cost, and the service is being provided to multitudes of users, and it has more capacity to build and expand their access, improve outcomes, and even reduce costs. The healthcare system is actually transformed so much that we are no longer looking at it as a fee for service system. We're looking for a value-based system. Are we reducing the hospital readmissions? Are we reducing values? Are we able to prevent fraud of health insurance? Are we able to provide the accurate treatment? Are we able to see anticipate drug misuse? These are some of all of these changes that, of course, have been driven by analytics and machine learning and artificial intelligence and whatnot. But then all these are transformations that have been intentionally driven in different healthcare organizations. FedEx, which has been continuously changing its business ecosystem. Has experimented with drone delivery, has experimented with sensor-based logistics. They were able to handle, I believe it's called Roxo, if I'm not wrong, the same day bot. So all this has all of these different industries and different segments, we see massive changes. And as you can see, it's not just lifting a service and providing it virtually. It's about transforming the business model, and in some cases much more than that. It's about using new technologies, which is something that is very important. It's sometimes it's even new technology has also been the driver of digital transformation. How in the case of Microsoft, if you take, they were able to face competitors like Apple and Amazon and Google by by building a cloud-based computing system. They were their aim was to provide their goal was to provide like an easier access to technology, both for individuals and organizations. So the way they have transformed themselves is not just with the model. They were also able to provide new technology. Their focus was more on the leveraging the digitization as well. And in fact, I think they have performed so well, which I don't think I have to speak more on that. So definitely, if we look at multiple levels of transformation that can happen. So I think this is a very important topic where we just spoke about new technologies. So, as you might know, big data analytics and AI and machine learning and Internet of Things and cloud and 3D printing are all new technologies and innovations which have driven digital transformation in a way that we've not seen before. Um, Most importantly, they are able to devise like cognitive systems which help acceleration, which have helped accelerate the transformation even higher. So we should always be on the lookout for what kind of technologies we can use, or what kind of new technologies that the other organization which have a different business model have used, and which can probably be applied to our existing business functions. Is there a way for us to perform our are there new service channels that we can provide our service through? Are there new customer service segments which we can provide to? Earlier, for example, Zoom learning was only catered to part-time executives. Now we have even elementary school kids who are using Zoom. So the industry landscape is constantly evolving, and if you keep your pulse on what's changing, you're able to identify accelerators and you're able to provide your service seamlessly. And of course, no one can we cannot discredit the pandemic for being a great disruptor. In fact, it's been a major accelerator. I think Zoom has benefited much more than any other organization over this pandemic, enabling families to communicate with each other, enabling companies to perform their day-to-day task, helping children and college kids like you attend online classes. So we should be always on the constant lookout for accelerators that can definitely influence digital transformation. And when I talk about accelerator, I definitely should mention artificial intelligence and machine learning, where we have to find out new ways of prescriptive analytics that can be employed. What are the insights that you are looking for, which can be utilized to make your transformation journey a success. How can you drive the transformation organically, instead of just looking for means of transformation? How can you embed the decision making process as a seamless journey within the organization? These are some of the things which we should always be constantly on the lookout for. Have all digital transformations been a success? No. I think we can talk about companies like Ford and GE, where they poured millions and millions of dollars into their transformation initiatives, but they failed immensely. They were trying, try to build huge Internet of Things platform. They added sensors to products, and they tried to transform its business models for industrial products, but and even hired billions, thousands and thousands of employees, but their stock prices continued to drop, and they were not able to, um, fulfill their attempt to digitally transform in their products and offerings. Even though the efforts were applauded much in the press, and investors didn't acknowledge the transformation as such. And it's not just these companies that like GE and Ford, which failed in their transitions. There's other companies like Nike, which introduced a new stream of revenue, like an activity band tracker, which probably had a lot of investment being made as well, which also failed. So do all digital transformations have the possibility of a success, or is there a chance that your digital transformation can fail? Yes, of course, your digital transformation can fail. We are not all fail-proof, but what is the biggest reason why we think that these transformations fail? It's simply because the entire organization fails to inherit the goal, strategy, and purpose. They're not able to, the leadership is not able to effectively communicate their goals to the entire organization, and they end up with a lot of resistance to change. This, in fact, also is a side effect of working in silos, where every there is no collaboration between the multiple systems, and it's not driven as a strategy. It's just each component is working separately, and they don't share the common vision. Of course, we have very minimal impact due to the lack of expertise, and also having tightly obsolete legacy systems, which is quite difficult to modernize, or quite difficult to digitally transform. But the biggest reason for any digital transformation failure would relate to being the organizational shift. If your frontline workers don't share the mission of change, then it's you're not going to be able to drive your transformation transformation successfully. So who drives the transformation? We spoke about the customer service. We are delighting the customer service, um, um, delighting the customers. And so, are you looking for customer service leaders to be the people who drive the transformation? Probably not. It should be a shared responsibility. It should be a shared responsibility across multiple silos that we just mentioned. It has to be a collaborative effort. The cultures should have a shift towards welcoming intelligent failures. The structure, the organizational structure itself should should be capable of you know should be capable of driving a governance mechanism that can test and fail if and the you should be able to nurture experimental failures. But even though it's a shared responsibility, as I've mentioned before, it has to be driven as a strategy that is driven from top to down. So it has to be a top down approach, and it cannot be very segmented mentality. And you have to choose your right leadership and right people to drive your transformation. So we now know, like, what is digital transformation. We understand the difference between digital transformation and digitization, and we understand how it can influence the competitive landscape. We understand how, what is your roadmap look like, and who your digital transformation drivers are, and how your organizational shift would change. And we also saw some examples. But what does all of this mean to you? This means that the entire industry landscape has changed. So budding engineers like you have to be vigilant of these changes, and you have to be current with your skills as engineers. Technology seems to be a big accelerator for digital transformations. So you have to be constantly learning just not the tools, but the techniques. You can code using Python or Java or whatever, but you understand the basics of programming. You are very current with your skills. And you're also ensuring what is the competition doing. And in the sense of competition, I'm talking about the competition of your industry. What are they doing, and how you can bridge those gaps? And you're looking at your customers' need. You understand what your organization is geared towards. How can you bridge the gap between what the customer is wanting, and what your offer is? You should also be able to speak up and strengthen your communication. That is very important in the current era. And try to merge your skills between business and technology. You should be able to talk to different people with different backgrounds, and should be able to communicate your ideas, and don't be afraid to fail. And also try to automate your work wherever you can, so that you can move on to the next level. You don't want to stay at your level. Don't be scared of taking risks. You should be able to transfer your knowledge to other people, so that you can elevate yourself and go higher. So these are some of the key learnings which I would say is very current in this era. And and I'd like to leave you with this quote: "The only constant in life is change. So embrace it, learn from it, and keep yourself always updated, and enjoy life." Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, thank you, Shrividya, for that wonderful presentation and the talk. So this is a lot of information, and it's a complete package. So we have a few questions from our students. So let me post that. So we have one from Jennifer. So Jennifer, would you want to pose a question to Shrividya? You can unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
Yeah, ma'am. So how well are organizations in India adapting to this digital transformation?
I think in India, the digital transformation is actually very, very fast when compared to other countries. They're able to make those change quickly. We're more agile. We're able, the chaotic life that we lead has allowed us to be very agile with changes. So if you take the case of Flipkart or Swiggy or any other new service providers, any small other organization which has grown significantly over the years, you can see that they've adapted the processes, and they were able to mimic some of the business models, and they were able to provide it to a geographically different region, which means that and the culture shift is also very, very different. It's the same type of customers as you won't see it in India and in the US. So I believe that digital transformation is actually much accelerated in India.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope that answers your question, Jenny.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so there is another interesting question from Sundar Ganesh. Let me read it for you. So how do we inject this digital transformation to, illiterate people?
Right, that is a very, very important question. And, I don't know if you've heard about the human-centered design, where, we're looking at different methods of empowering technology to be able to reach illiterate people. They don't need to actually, or even senior citizens, they don't need to look at the look and read at and they probably could just click on icons and navigate easily. So those are some of those technologies or new innovations that are available in the industry that you can use, or techniques that you can use to make a change. And it also depends on the product that you're trying to launch, right? So you can personalize or customize your product, but you can apply these kind of techniques and help anybody at different level. And it's just not just illiterate people. You can also work with disabled, those the blind, or even older people who have difficulty in in maneuvering with their with the small devices. So that's an excellent question. I really like it, and that's where we also see real impact being made. So it is definitely possible.
Thank you, Shrividya. And we have one last question, and then we will wrap up the session. So how the companies are adapting themselves to the digital transformation. I know this is a open-ended question, but let me just put it this way. What are the industries that are currently facing the difficulties with this digital transformation? Which industry in particular? Like I know the banking sector has just started this digital transformation much ahead of other industries. But what is the current industry? I mean, what is the industry which is currently facing the biggest challenge of this digital transformation?
I would think that every industry has embraced, digital transformation differently. Of course, if you think of the government sectors, there's a lot of regulations that are being placed, and that's probably one of the arenas where I would think that digital transformation is a little slower. But having said that, too, now we have, cloud services where you have, available FedRAMP accreditation and things like that, which also assure the government, they're able to navigate through those kind of regulations and provide digital transformation services. There's also a little bit of hesitancy towards, use of PHI and PII, or sensitive information, but all that have been slowly being opened up, with high security and high opportunities for high security being placed. So I wouldn't pinpoint any specific industry, but there are within multiple industry, there are certain areas which are slightly struggling, but I don't think it would be long before we see a big change in that.
Thank you, Shrividya. With that, we'll conclude the session. So thank you, everyone, for all the viewers who are online. Thanks for your patience and thanks for your interest. And we'll stay put for post-discussion talks, Shrividya, and for the online audience until we meet next time. Thank you all.
Thanks,
have a great day.